how to forgive ourselves when we make a mistake. I'm going to get a little bit personal with you in this episode because last week I made a mistake. Share with you the 3-step process to forgiving yourself for a mistake and reaching self-love. If you're finding yourself beating yourself up over it, thinking about this past mistake and not letting go, this video is for you. Hello, happy campers. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Contemporary Happiness Podcast, the podcast where we discuss the art and science of happiness in contemporary society. I'm your host, David Nima. I'm a lawyer by trade and your happiness coach. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the art of self-forgiveness and how to bounce back from a mistake. I'm going to get a little bit personal with you in this episode because last week I made a mistake. And this wasn't just a small mistake. It was a mistake that to me was huge. But rather than discussing my specific mistake, I want to talk about something a little bit more universal. How to forgive ourselves when we make a mistake. Okay, so let's get right into it. Now, a mistake can be anything. Maybe, for example, you made the mistake of betting too much money on a poker game and you lost it all. Maybe you said or did something that you shouldn't have on a date or maybe in some other relationship that you regret saying or doing. Maybe you were not prepared as you could have been for an important job interview. Right? The mistake is irrelevant, and the magnitude of the mistake is also irrelevant. How big the mistake was or how small the mistake was. If you're finding yourself beating yourself up over it, thinking about this past mistake and not letting go, this video is for you. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3-step process to forgiving yourself for a mistake and reaching self-love. And then I'm going to share with you a couple of mindset shifts that will ultimately help you in loving yourself and appreciating every day that you have, regardless of your past. So step 1 here in the path to self-forgiveness is self-awareness. Self-awareness means the lack of denial. It means that you don't want to run from the mistake. You don't want to sweep it under the rug. You don't want to pretend like it didn't happen. You don't want to blame others for the mistake. Your first job is to be aware that you made a mistake. You want to kind of admit this to yourself that, hey, look, this was a mistake. Okay? I made an error. And I think that's very important to not be in denial about the mistake, because as you'll see later on in this video, you're never going to be able to learn from a mistake unless you actually acknowledge this mistake. Step 2 on the path to self-forgiveness after a mistake is self-acceptance. Self-acceptance means that you recognize that this error that you made, this mistake that you made, is part of who you are. The flip side of this is to kind of hold yourself out there to be quote unquote perfect, right? We all know that nobody is perfect. And therefore, everybody has flaws. Everybody makes mistakes. So this mistake that you may have recently made, or maybe it's a mistake that you made a long time ago, is just simply part of who you are. You have all these good things about you, right? And then once in a while, you have an area in your life where you can improve. And that's beautiful. That's who you are. That's what makes us all human beings and makes us unique, right? If everybody was perfect, there'd be no uniqueness among human individuals, right? If everybody was so well dressed all the time, then being well dressed wouldn't mean anything, right? If everybody was always, the smartest person in the room, then nobody would appreciate, somebody who's smart. So you are you because of your strengths and your flaws and your mistakes. Right? And I think it's very, very powerful to accept the person that you are, mistakes and all. I just accept it and just kind of say, hey, this is who I am. Okay? This is who I am. And I made a mistake last week, but That's what makes me me. And I'm going to strive to do better next time, to learn from my mistake. Then step 3 towards self-forgiveness after a mistake in the past is self-love. Once you're self-aware and you're self-accepting, it's very easy to have self-love. You got to understand that you are still worthy despite the mistake that you made last week or a long time ago. You're still worthy. You're still a human being. You have self-worth. To put it another way, just because you made a mistake doesn't mean that somebody can come off the street and assault you, for example, and punch you in the face just because you made a mistake. You still have value. You have self-worth. You have inalienable rights. Nobody has a right to come and punch you in the face even though you made a mistake last week. So my advice to you is to carry out that amount of love that others have for you yourself and have that high level of self-love despite the mistakes that you've made. So once again, remember, it's all about self-awareness, which is the absence of denial, self-acceptance, which basically means I'm not perfect and I am me with all my wonderful things about me and some of the mistakes that I've made in the past, and therefore I have self-love. So let me give you a mindset shift here that I think will tremendously help you in dealing with past mistakes. And that is the concept of human memory. The evolutionary reason and the biological reason that we have memories, human beings have such a strong memory, and we have such an ability to remember our past, including our mistakes, is not so that we can dwell on our mistakes. It's so that we can learn from our lessons. The best example to illustrate this point is when a child touches a hot stove. When a child touches a hot stove and gets burned, he doesn't go around all day dwelling, why did I touch that stove? Why did I get burned? I'm not perfect. I made a mistake. He's not doing that. What he does is that the next time he's near the stove, he remembers instinctively to pull his hand back before touching the stove. He learned from that prior experience. The memory of that unfortunate bad feeling of touching a hot stove helped him avoid touching a hot stove again. And this is the perfect utilization of human memory. It's not so that we can dwell on the past. It is so that we can learn from our lessons. So my own personal example, I've done the math and I've thought about some of the reasons why I made the mistake that I have made. And I have affirmed to myself that I will do better next time. And that is the correct use of my memory of that mistake. Not to sit here and relitigate the past and think about the what ifs and if onlys and if I can do this and yada, yada, yada. The time has passed. And the best thing that I can do now, today, is to remember the lessons that I've learned from that mistake so that I can avoid making that mistake again in the future. So that's a little bit about the art of self-forgiveness after we make a mistake. Mistakes can feel huge to you, but to other people, it might be a small mistake. That's irrelevant. The point is that if you're sitting there and you're beating yourself up over a past mistake, I encourage you to practice the 3-step rule, which is self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love. Understand the evolutionary reason that you can even actually remember this past mistake, which is solely to learn from it. Thank you all for listening. This is David Nima, host of the Contemporary Happiness Podcast. If you found value in this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the Contemporary Happiness channel on YouTube, and share this video with your loved ones that you feel are dwelling on their past. And if you've ever struggled with forgiving yourself for a past mistake, or if you have successfully forgiven yourself for a past mistakes, let me know in the comments how you did that and how it went for you. We're all in this together. Nobody is perfect, and we're all trying to get better and better every day. I'm David Nima, host of the Contemporary Happiness Podcast, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.